He stood red-faced, sweat slick on his temples, hands gripping the arm of the woman beside him. Her head was bowed, bonnet shadowing her face. Dust clung to her faded dress, and when he jerked her forward, she stumbled but did not resist. Barren as dry ground, the husband spat, his voice harsh with liquor. A mouth to feed, nothing to give, a sack of corn's worth more. A murmur passed among the townsfolk. Some turned their eyes away. Others stared with tight jaws, but none stepped forward. In the corner, a boy's laughter cracked nervously, quickly smothered by his father's hand on his shoulder. The woman's hands twisted in front of her, knuckles pale. She breathed shallowly, as if the weight of every gaze pressed her lower into herself. The shopkeeper cleared his throat, uncomfortable. "Mister, that ain't." "It is," the husband cut in, slamming his fist onto the counter. The jars rattled, and the lantern flame shivered. "Corn for her. Or I'd take her to the road and leave her there." The silence thickened. Boots shifted. Spurs jingled softly. The woman lifted her eyes just once, glancing across the faces in the room. Each time, the eyes that met hers slid away. Shame prickled hot on her skin. Then a chair scraped against the floorboards. From the shadowed edge of the room, a man rose. Broad shoulders filled his coat, a hat pulled low over his brow, a scar dragging pale across his jaw. He said nothing. The husband barked a laugh. "Well, you want her? Got a sack of corn? Or maybe a pig to trade?" The rancher's boots carried him slowly to the counter. Dust clung to the cuffs of his trousers. His silence pressed heavier than any words. He reached into his pocket. Metal rang sharp against the counter. A silver dollar. The room stilled, the sound echoing like a gunshot. The husband's grin faltered. "That ain't corn." The rancher's eyes lifted, steel gray, cold, unblinking. He didn't speak. The husband shifted, uneasy. His grip loosened on the woman's arm, and for the first time, she breathed fully. "Take her, then," he muttered, shoving her forward. "She's your burden now." The rancher's hand reached, not for her arm, but her hand. His touch was firm, steady. He didn't drag her. He simply stood, holding her fingers until her trembling eased. The husband grabbed the silver dollar, spitting in disgust. Worthless woman. A murmur rippled again, but no one moved. No one stopped him as he stormed out, boots pounding into the dust outside. The door slammed, the glass panes rattling in their frames. The rancher turned. The woman still stared at the floor, cheeks burning with humiliation. He released her hand only long enough to tip his hat to the room, then guided her toward the door. They stepped into the blinding sunset. Heat rolled up from the earth in waves. Behind them, whispers started again, hushed but sharp. "Did you see?" "Bar like stock." "Silent fool." The words faded as the door shut behind. Outside, the street stretched long and empty, dust curling around wagon wheels, dogs slinking through the shadows. The rancher's horse stood tethered at the post, a tall, dark gelding, muscles rippling beneath its hide. Beside it, a smaller roan mare waited, saddled. He untied the mare's reins, placed them gently into the woman's hands. She blinked at him, confusion flickering in her eyes. He nodded once, steady, and lifted her by the waist into the saddle. Her breath caught at the suddenness, but his hands were sure, respectful, never lingering. She sat upright, hands clutching the reins like lifelines. He swung into his own saddle with the ease of long habit, turned his horse toward the horizon where the land bled red beneath the dying sun. Without a word, he nudged the gelding forward. The mare followed. The town shrank behind them. The sounds of hammers, voices, and the creak of wagons faded into the emptiness of the plains. The woman glanced back only once. The trading post stood small and distant, the place where her life had ended and begun again in the same breath. She lowered her gaze, tears burning but refusing to fall. Ahead, the rancher rode in silence, hat brim shadowing his face, hands steady on the reins. The weight of his silence was not cruel. It was steadying, like a mountain holding its place against the wind. She breathed deep, filling her lungs with the dry, open air. For the first time in years, she felt something stir in her chest. Not hope, not yet, but the faintest memory of it. The trail stretched wide before them, empty, waiting. The rope snapped tight against her palms, water sloshing hard inside the wooden bucket as she dragged it from the well. The sun stood high, burning the canyon walls until they glowed red like iron fresh from a forge. Sweat stung her eyes, dust clung to her lips. The rancher's shadow passed over her. He carried 2 bales of hay across his shoulders, his movements quiet, unstrained. He set them down without a sound, turned, and motioned with a tilt of his chin toward the corral. She followed his gesture. A calf bawled, its leg caught between the rails. She dropped the bucket, skirts gathering dust, and hurried forward. Her hands trembled as she tugged at the stuck limb. The calf thrashed, panic rising. Boots thudded beside her. Large hands pressed firm against the rail. Pry it back with slow strength until the gap widened. The calf sprang free, stumbling into the pen. She looked up breathless. Dust streaked across her cheeks. His gray eyes met hers for a moment. He gave a single nod. Then he turned away, silent as always. The days unfolded like that. Work, silence, the rhythm of the land. At dawn, he was already saddling horses. At dusk, he was repairing fences, the last light clinging to the scar across his jaw. She moved in his wake, filling the spaces he left open, laying out bread, fetching water, patching worn shirts with neat stitches. But the silence gnawed. One evening, as the sky bled into violet, she stood at the table inside his cabin. A single plate sat before him, bread and beans cooling. She lingered in the doorway, hands twisting at her apron. "You took me from him," she said, voice quiet, trembling but steady enough to reach the space between them. The fork paused halfway to his mouth. He did not raise his eyes. He chewed, swallowed, set the fork down with care. She waited. Nothing. Her throat tightened. "Why?" His hand closed around his tin cup. He drank slow, the silence between them louder than any answer. Her eyes stung. She turned away, biting her lip to keep from speaking again. Outside, the wind swept across the land, rattling the shutters. Coyotes yipped in the distance. The rancher rose from the table, boots heavy on the floorboards, and stepped out into the night without a word. She stood in the emptiness he left, the unanswered question hanging in the air like smoke that would not clear. The next morning, she found a chair dragged beneath the oak, its seat catching the shade just as the sun rose high. A folded blanket lay across it. She touched it, fingers tracing the worn threads. Later that day, when she dropped the bucket trying to lift it alone, he appeared, stooping without pause to take it from her hands. He didn't scold, didn't smile. He only carried it to the trough, set it down, and walked on. She began to see it, the language of small things, the way he pushed the bread toward her first, the way his hand brushed the horse's reins into her grip, teaching her without words how to hold steady, the way his eyes, cold as iron, softened a fraction when she laughed once by accident at a calf tumbling into the dust. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was not pity either. It was something heavier. One evening, as shadows stretched long across the canyon, she saw them, dark riders at the horizon. 3, maybe 4, just shapes against the burning sky. They lingered, watching. The rancher froze in the yard, hammer still in his hand from fixing the fence. His eyes narrowed, following the silhouettes. Her breath caught. "Who are they?" He didn't answer. He dropped the hammer, strode inside, and returned with his old gun belt. The leather creaked as he fastened it around his waist. He didn't touch the revolver, but his hand rested near it, heavy, certain. The riders wheeled away into the distance, dust rising in their wake. The rancher stood still until the last trace of them was gone. Only then did he turn toward her, eyes dark, unreadable. The silence stretched between them again, but this time it felt different, sharp-edged, waiting. That night she couldn't sleep. Every creak of the windmill, every coyote's cry pulled her awake. She sat by the window, staring out the dark yard, the fence posts standing like thin sentinels in the moonlight. Then she heard it, boots outside, soft against the dirt. A shadow crossed the window, tall, moving slow toward the cabin door. Her breath froze in her chest. She rose, skirts whispering against the floorboards, heart hammering. The door creaked. The latch shifted. She opened her mouth to call, but no sound came. The shadow lingered, heavy, then moved toward the barn. The faint squeal of hinges reached her ears, then silence again. She stood shaking in the dark, alone in the cabin, waiting for the next sound to fall. Torches hissed in the dark, flames whipping in the canyon wind. Horses stamped and snorted beyond the fence. Shadows of men flickering long across the yard. "Come out, rancher," a voice barked, rough and cruel. "You know what's owed." The woman pressed her back against the cabin wall, heart pounding, her breath trembling. Through the window she saw them. 5 riders, their faces hard with dust and greed, guns strapped loose at their hips. One leaned from his saddle, laughing. "Where's the drunk that sold her? We'll take our due one way or another." Her stomach twisted. Her husband's name cut sharp through the night, spat like venom. The cabin door creaked open. The rancher stepped out slow, no lantern in hand, no words in his mouth. The scar on his jaw caught the torchlight. His boots sank steady into the dirt as he stopped in the center of the yard, silent, unshaken. "Ah! There he is," the leader sneered. "The mute rancher. Took the woman in, did you? Don't matter. She's his debt, and debts follow where they're owed." The men jeered, ugly laughter curling like smoke. The woman's nails dug into the windowsill. Her shame rose hot, but beneath it, something else stirred. Anger, sharp and new. The rancher didn't move, didn't answer, just stood with the weight of stone, eyes cold, hands resting at his sides, near the gun belt that had been gathering dust until now. The leader leaned forward, torchlight licking his grin. "Heard tales about you once. Fastest draw on the frontier, they say. Then one day," he snapped his fingers, "you went quiet, quit spilling blood. Ain't that right?" Whispers rustled among the men. The legend hung in the air, heavy as the smoke from their torches. The woman's breath caught. She looked at the man she had thought only silent, only strange. Now she saw something else, a shadow deeper than words, a history that hummed in every line of his stillness. The leader spat into the dirt. "You gonna pay his debt, rancher? Or we take her with us and settle it ourselves?" The rancher's eyes shifted, just once, toward the window where she hid. His gaze met hers through the glass. Her breath stilled. Then he turned back to the men, unmoving, his silence louder than any reply. "Enough waiting." One outlaw growled, dismounting, boots crunching on gravel. He stalked toward the porch. "We'll drag her out ourselves." The woman's hand clenched the doorframe. She swallowed fear, stepped forward into the lantern light before the outlaw could reach the cabin. "She isn't his debt," she said, voice steady though her knees trembled. "She isn't anyone's." The men stopped, surprise flashing across their faces. The leader laughed, the sound like broken glass. "Listen here, the traded wife's got a tongue after all." The words cut, but she stood straighter, chin lifting. "I won't go back. Not to him. Not to you." The outlaw's hand closed on her arm, rough and bruising. "Then you'll go where we say." A shadow fell over them. The rancher had moved without sound, his hand clamping around the outlaw's wrist. His grip forced the man to his knees, face twisting in pain. A gun cocked. The leader aimed his revolver, grinning wide. There it is. The old hand still quick. The others spread, forming a half circle, their eyes hungry for the fight they knew was coming. Before a shot could fire, another voice broke through the night, slurred, ugly, all too familiar. "Hold!" From the darkness staggered her husband, coat hanging open, bottle in hand. His face was slack with drink, his grin cruel as ever. "Well, ain't this a sight?" He swayed forward, pointing at her. "Still mine. She goes where I say." Her blood turned cold. The torchlight caught the sneer on his lips, the same sneer that had bartered her away like grain. "She's worth more 'n corn now," he slurred. "She'll fetch me clear my debts. Take her, boys. She's yours." Her heart pounded, fury rising, choking her. The rancher stepped between them, slow, deliberate. The torchlight carved him tall, broad, unshaken. His silence wrapped around the yard like iron chains. The husband laughed, spit flying. What? You protecting her now? She's nothing. Always was. No answer. Only stillness. The woman's hands balled into fists. She stepped closer, standing at the rancher's side. Her voice cracked, but the fire in it held. I am not nothing. The words hung sharp in the night. For the first time, her husband's grin faltered. The outlaws shifted, restless. Hands on their guns. The leader's eyes gleamed. Well, now, looks like we got ourselves a show. The rancher's hand lowered to his holster. Not fast, not yet, but certain final. The woman looked at him, then at the men around them. She could feel it coming, the moment the dust itself would break apart with gunfire. Her husband sneered, spreading his arms wide. Let's see it then, silent man. Let's see if the legend's true. The rancher's eyes, cold as winter steel, fixed on the drunk who had traded her away. The silence grew unbearable, stretched taut as a rope ready to snap. And in that silence, she understood. The past was rising, and with it, the reckoning. Dust spiraled down the empty street, twisting in the noon glare. Doors were bolted, windows shuttered, but eyes watched from every crack as boots struck the dirt. The rancher walked steady, each step sinking deep in the powdery road. At his side, the woman kept pace, her face set, chin high, the hem of her dress dragging through the dust. Behind them, the outlaw riders fanned out, laughter scraping harsh against the silence of the town. At the far end of the street, her husband staggered forward, hat crooked, gun loose in his hand. She's mine, he slurred, voice raw, echoing off the clapper walls. Bought and sold. Don't matter who she hides behind. The rancher stopped in the center of the street. He turned his body square, his hand hanging heavy near the holster. He didn't speak. Didn't need to. The outlaw leader stepped up beside the drunk husband, grinning wide, his revolver already drawn. You hear that, rancher? She ain't yours. She's his. And when he's done, she's ours. A gasp carried from the watching windows. The air itself seemed to freeze. The woman's heart hammered, but she stepped closer, standing tall in the shadow of the silent rancher. Her voice rang out, clear and sharp, cutting the tension. I belong to no man. The words cracked across the street like a shot. For the first time, the outlaw's laughter faltered. Even her husband blinked unsteady. The leader sneered, lifting his revolver higher. Then you'll die with him. Silence stretched, hot and suffocating. The rancher's hand lowered, inch by inch, toward the grip of his gun. His eyes never left the men across from him. His stillness was unbearable, a storm wound tight. The woman's breath caught. Her hand moved before thought could stop it. She reached for the revolver strapped to the rancher's side, his backup gun smaller, tucked beneath his coat. Her fingers closed around the cold steel. The outlaws laughed again. She's reaching for iron now. Look at her shake. But her hand was steady. She lifted the revolver, cocked the hammer with a sharp click that split the air. The rancher didn't move, didn't stop her. His gray eyes shifted to hers, holding for a heartbeat, steadying her more than words ever could. The leader fired first. The blast roared, echoing through the street, glass shattering in the windows. Splinters flew from the post beside her, but she was faster. Her finger pulled, the revolver bucking hard in her grip. The leader's grin snapped open into shock as the bullet tore him back. He collapsed into the dust, torch flame guttering out in his hand. Chaos exploded. Guns cracked, smoke thickened. Outlaws dug for cover. The woman fired again, her arms trembling but her aim true. One man spun from the saddle, crashing hard into the street. The rancher moved then, slow, deliberate, every shot of his revolver finding its mark. He didn't waste a bullet, didn't rush. His silence filled the chaos, a rhythm steadier than the storm of gunfire. Her husband stumbled forward, raising his pistol. His eyes were wild, his words slurred. You ain't nothing, he screamed, spitting foam. The woman turned, breath ragged, revolver still smoking in her grip. Her hand did not tremble now. He laughed, a broken sound. Corn was worth more. She fired. The bottle in his hand shattered, whiskey spraying into the dust. The pistol dropped from his grip as he fell to his knees, eyes wide, mouth working soundlessly. The street went quiet. Smoke drifted, curling around bodies in the dirt. The few outlaws left alive fled, spurring their horses hard, dust swallowing them whole. The woman stood in the center of the street, chest heaving, the revolver still warm in her hand. Every eye in town was on her. The Barren wife. The woman traded for Corn. The rancher stepped forward, his hand closing gently over the gun, lowering it. For the first time, his voice came, low, rough, carved from years of silence. "She's braver than I'll ever be." The words carried, clear and final, echoing off the boards and into the hearts of the watching crowd. The woman looked at him, tears burning her eyes, but her chin held high. She wasn't trembling. She wasn't ashamed. The husband groaned in the dirt, broken and beaten, but no one moved to help him. The townsfolk began to emerge, silent, faces etched with something close to reverence as they looked at her. The rancher took her hand, steady, certain, and together they turned from the street. Dust rose around their steps, the sun blazing white above them. Behind, whispers began, the kind that grow into legend. The traded wife who stood her ground. The silent rancher who spoke just once. The day the Barren woman's name was carved into the frontier. And so the tale settled into the dust, where Corn was cheaper than a woman's pride, until she rose, not as a castaway, but as a legend reborn,